Hey everyone, Crafty Sew Seamstress back again. Last time I was showing you how to thread your machine, how different machines are similar. Sorry, I'm kind of ultra casual these days, but comfort is all it is. So I'm back using my good old standby. They say it's a basically unicorn kind of sewing machine because it was a prototype. Kenmore. Not one that they mass produced or anything because of the special features with it. When you do your test stitches, which you always want to do before you start any product, there's nothing more frustrating than you're making an outfit for yourself or for a friend or family member and you get halfway through it and then the stitches are like messed up. They start skipping or whatever. That's caused by a lot of different things. So one of the things that the test stitches are good for is to show exactly the condition of your machine from the last project you worked on. And if it's the first time you're using the sewing machine, also gives you an idea of the possible history of the prior individual that owned it. And it's an important thing. You can tell, believe it or not, you can really tell if a machine was worked hard its whole life or if it was hardly worked at all. If it was hardly worked at all, typically what happens is you stitch the first thing and it's like gorgeous and it stays that way. As long as you remember one main thing. Let the sewing machine do the work, not you. All you're doing is guiding it. You're just showing it, okay, this is where it needs to go. You take it. Let's go. Okay? So I'm working on some satin, on a satin gown. And a lot of people ask me about, well, what should I make first? Well, if you're a very new beginner, like 3 of my new friends are, and you guys know who you are, anything that is a straight line. There's nothing worse than being a beginner, going to make a shirt that has sleeves, and then you have to do a curve, and you just don't. It's like you're fighting the curve, trying to get it to go through the machine, and we're going to cover that too later on, how to deal with curves when you're a beginner. The trick is go slowly until you get to where you really know how your machine works. Excuse me, how it works with you in particular. Please don't laugh at this one, but and a lot of people say, they say when old people talk to stuff, they're crazy. Well, my grandmother used to talk to her plants, like a lot of older folks would do, and she had the most gorgeous African violets. I can't grow them, I kill them. And she talked to them. Well, part of that of my grandmother kind of rubbed off on me because when I have a sewing machine that acts up and it stitches great and then all of a sudden it decides I'm tired, I'm not going to do it anymore, and then you start skipping stitches and I check everything like I do and everything's, you know, in order and it still doesn't want to stitch. I had one last night. I said, okay, you're being a stinker. I'm not going to deal with you anymore tonight, just like it's one of my kids, right? I'm going to bed. I said, when I get up in the morning, you better sew for me. I swear they're part human somewhere in there. That sewing machine. This morning, came over here to do a test stitch. You know what that sewing machine did? Sewed a perfect line. Not a skip stitch, nothing. It was gorgeous. I tell you what, I was like, you really are a stinker. And that normally doesn't happen with that machine. I think that machine was jealous of my other ones, honestly. And it said, I ain't doing it. But anyhow, so I have a gentleman that I'm teaching, a young man who is wanting to do his own design line of some jeans, some really kind of funky and up-to-date embellishment, for lack of better words. And the machine that I sold to him decided it was going to be a bad boy. And I sat there and I checked everything. The timing was off. The needle to the bobbin, remember I told you, the needle has to meet the bobbin at a specific point in order to make a perfect stitch. It decided not to do the stitches. It started out great and just started to act up, and I said, well, let me double check it. I knew it possibly could be a little bit off. The least little bit of variation, like a bend in the needle, is going to cause an issue with your stitches. So that's why I tell the people that purchase sewing machines from me, it says you have to give it TLC, tender loving care. You have to listen to it when you push the power pedal. If you hear it making a and it sounds like it's struggling, there's something wrong. It could be a number of things, but typically when it's doing that, either it hasn't been oiled or didn't have enough gear grease put in it when it was last serviced. Little things like that you don't really think about. You think they're like, oh, it turns on, the pedal works, and you can go. But after time, those things can dry out, harden up, and just really cause issues. So pay attention to the sounds of your machine, not just what it's doing as far as stitch goes. That's important. That's how you keep your sewing machine alive and well for a long time. When you do your test stitches, do a straight stitch 2 or 3 times, because sometimes in between projects, as it's sitting, things can kind of like settle out, loosen up or whatever. And if you do 2 or 3 samples of each kind of stitch that you know you're going to do, then you will avoid that problem of doing one seam and the next seam. Like, why are the stitches all messed up? Because you have to, it's kind of like your car. Before you drive, you turn it on, right? And you let it warm up. Same thing with a sewing machine. Especially if it's, like I said, if it's been a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatever, a time frame between projects, and it's been sitting, just literally sitting, it's a good idea. I always do it. And that kind of regular pattern has not failed me yet. But the sewing machines like to have an attitude sometimes. So what I've got going here, like I said, I'm working on a steam gown for one of my customers. It is a straight stitch all the way around 120 inches. And sometimes it seems like it takes forever. With something of that length, especially if one of your first things you want to tackle is sheer curtains, any kind of curtains, it's perfect first project. First project should be a couple of things. It can be a pillow cover, curtains, gives you a good excuse to change the color scheme in your room, you know, different colored throw pillows and different colored curtains. Make them, throw them up there, and it's like, wow, that looks really good. I'm going to do this in the next room. So that's how I end up. I start one room and I keep going through the house. But what you want to do, now, I make an extremely thin hem on these gowns to the point where, yes, I could use a narrow rolled hem foot. I haven't found a narrow rolled hem foot that does it perfectly every single time. It's probably me. So I hand do them. As I'm guiding it through, I turn the hem under real thin and let the machine stitch it on top of what I've already rolled. This is where, when you get to know your machine and you get to know how your hands work with the fabric under the machine, what you need to do to make it look like the way you want it to look. Me, I'm kind of picky. When it comes to those thin hems, I don't want them to have, I just want to be smooth. I have even gone to the point where on a narrow rolled hem, just to give it a little more pizzazz, I'll do a zigzag stitch instead of a straight stitch around it. And that's actually not a bad idea for something that's going to be on the floor. You're not really going to see it, but you're going to know that over time it's going to hold up really well because of the way it's stitched. It's got more strength added to it by doing a zigzag like that. But again, you don't want to do a zigzag stitch on a pair of pants you're going to wear, because that's going to look kind of odd. But when it comes to drapes, it doesn't matter. Nobody really looks at the bottom of your drapes, but you, when you wash them, right? Okay. I have my machine threaded. I have my bobbin thread in it, and I'm going to do a little bit of the Hamstitch so you can see, and I want you to hear the speed of the machine, and you can see when I speed it up, when I slow it down. I slow it down when I get ready to roll more of the hem. So when you're doing curtains, or you're doing a pillowcase, or even a pillow sham that it doesn't have a zipper in it. I like to do pillow covers with a zipper, and we'll cover zippers later. A lot of people are scared of zippers, of doing them, but if you use the right zipper foot, you're going to love zippers after a while, because it makes it so much easier to keep that pillowcase fresh. Because that way you unzip it, throw it in the wash, dry, put it back on the pillow. As a matter of fact, I think we'll do pillow next time. We won't do the zipper one. We're going to do probably the sham, the pillow sham. The sham is just something that you put on the pillow. It's a 3-piece pattern, and you flip it inside out and put it on the pillow, flip it right side out. But we'll do that. We'll do that next time. Right now we're going to concentrate on straight seams, straight stitching. This is a straight, narrow hem that I'm doing, okay? So you can do that for curtains. Maybe we'll do the curtains and then the pillow. I think we'll do that. Because if you have a room that you want to change the decor, the best thing you can do is find a beautiful fabric that you love, do some accent pillows to go with it on your bed or whatever, and it makes the room have a whole different feel. It really does. Alright, I'm going to move this over here so you can see, and you're just going to have to listen to my silly voice in the background, okay? This, now the lights on these sewing machines are really bright, and I guess that's just how they are. I'm going to turn this just a little bit. You can kind of see a little bit better. Now I have put this, when you're doing a hem or a seam, you're doing it with the wrong side face up whenever you're doing that. Same thing when you are stitching 2 layers of fabric together. You're going to have right sides together, and your stitches are going on the inside, on the wrong side. Always on the inside, unless you're top stitching. And top stitching is a way of decorating what you're making. So for me, I have a narrow hammer. Let me find one to show you what it looks like. Narrow hem feet. That's why I have everything labeled so I can find it. This is one style. Since we're going to do curtains, I might actually put these on here and show you how to use one. Sorry about the noise, plastic. You can find these in a set of 3 online all day long. They come in 3 different sizes. There's a 1/4 inch, and this one is, it says 6/8, it's supposed to be 5/8. So you have a 1/4 inch one, this one, and then you have one that's 1 inch. And the way it is you feed the fabric up through it, it rolls it under and stitches it. And as you stitch, it makes the hem. So imagine this kind of thing in front of me. So you can roll it with my hands like this. I'm just going to do a little bit. And stitch along. Now you hear the motor? I'm just lightly touching the pedal because I do not want my seam line to be crooked or not match up. I'm going to turn over this one more time, just as narrow as I can get it. Tuck it in. And you see, I let the machine pull it. I don't pull it. And this is going to be the part that hangs on the floor. So I'm going to go a little bit more, and then I'll show you the results. Okay, so I'm going to take this out to show you. Just a second. Remember, you always, I don't know if you can see my hand, it's right there. You always turn the wheel towards yourself. And when you turn it towards yourself and you're finished sewing the seam that you're doing, you bring your needle all the way to the highest point before you take your material out. You lift up your presser foot in the back. Always pull your project away to the back. Do not pull it forward. That can mess up your bobbin and needle timing. This one actually has a little cutter on the back, which is nice, so you don't have to use scissors. And you cut it. And then, because this is brown on brown, you're probably not going to be able to see it very well. I'm going to turn this around a little bit. Like this. And bring this out. I will finish this later because I didn't want to take up too much of your time on this video because we got a lot to cover and a lot of different things to do. But this is the outside seam. The reason why you're seeing these little holes here, this is the selvage edge. And selvage meaning on the bolt, the fabric has straight edge on both ends. And then you have a rough edge, which is where they cut it. So this is the machine finished edge. What's great about this edge is, like, you can do this with this. Once I use the iron with some steam, those little holes will disappear. That's just where the machine pulled it through in order to measure it to put it on the bolt. That's where those little holes come from. They're not permanent. You just take a steam iron and steams them right out. It's just because the needle that pulls these, or the machine that actually pulls this has got bigger tines in it than, say, your sewing needle does. And that's why those end up there. But as you can see, I think you can see, it's a nice straight seam. That's the right side. That will be shown when on the outside by anyone that can see the outside. And on the back side, the wrong side, which is you're sewing from the wrong side to the right side, is the same. No puckers, no loops, perfect tension, beautiful stitches. And that's what you strive for. Initially, you want to get your straight stitch so perfect that when it comes to the zigzag, it's a piece of cake. The only tricky thing with zigzag is when you're changing direction or when you're going around a tight spot. But the trick to the tight spots and the tricky spots is the speed of your needle. And your foot determines your control. So when you're sewing, be attentive to how much pressure you're putting on your foot pedal. Listen to your machine and watch the speed. As you notice, when I was stitching, it was gradually going through. I wasn't pulling it. I let the machine does the work. So let the machine do the work. Don't try to go too fast, and you'll have beautiful stitches every time, especially with intricate stuff. And I can't wait to show you how to embellish a wedding dress one day. It's one of my favorite things to do, if you haven't guessed. But I'm going to finish this in a little while. I didn't want to keep too much of your time up for this particular video. Straight seams are easy, but get familiar with how the machine reacts with your fabric. Do your test stitches, and you're going to do great. And I can't wait to see some of the stuff that you guys make. I would love for you dudes to send me a message and give me a link or something where I can see what you're making, because then that makes me feel like I'm doing my job. Well, this isn't a job. It's just something I love to do. So anyway, I really like being able to share with you guys the one thing that lights me up in the morning, and that's to sew something. So keep sewing, and please share. Give me some comments. Let me know what you want to see. If I can't do it, I'll tell you I can't do it, but knowing me, I'll figure out how to do it. Yeah, crazy me that likes a challenge. So give me some challenges, people. Like, share, subscribe even. Keep me on here so I can teach you some more. Because once I'm gone, I can't teach you no more. And I want to be around a long time and teach you a whole lot of stuff. Okay? All right, everybody. I love y'all. And happy sewing.